Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping in for a high altitude trip to Costa Rica. This is a country whose very identity is, well, it's essentially steeped in coffee.
Absolutely. You're talking about this incredible combination of volcanic soil, perfect high-altitude growing conditions, and a history that goes all the way back to the early 1800s. Coffee was the country's first major export.
Right. So this isn't just a commodity. It's not just something you drink in the morning. It's really central to the whole rhythm of life there.
And that's exactly what travelers want to tap into. But the problem is, they often bring their own, very specific coffee habits from home.
The third wave habit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And completely unintentionally, they end up sabotaging the entire experience. So we've synthesized some insights from the experts at Café Tico to really highlight 8 critical blind spots.
And our mission for you, the learner, is to give you that critical shortcut. We want you to sidestep these common errors. The goal is to stop tasting like a tourist and, well, start tasting like an insider. So you can really appreciate the subtle flavors, the social customs, whether you're in the Central Valley or way up in the Tarrazú Highlands.
And to do that, we need to focus on one simple but absolutely crucial piece of technology, the Chorreador.
A corridor, okay.
Yeah, it's that traditional wooden stand that holds a cloth filter. It is the heart of Costa Rican coffee heritage. And understanding how it works, and maybe more importantly, how it informs the local palate, that's the first step.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should probably start right where the experience begins, right? Placing your order. So the first big pitfall is approaching a coffee menu like you're still in, I don't know, Seattle or London.
Mm.
Tourists often ask for these giant mugs of black coffee or a latte with like 3 extra shots. They think more is more.
And this is where that cultural gap just opens wide. The local reality is that traditional servings are meant to be small and strong, concentrated. They're often brewed using that simple corridor method.
So when you ask for American style,
You're sending a signal.
you're sending a signal. You're telling the staff that you want it diluted or weak.
But hold on, isn't high-altitude Costa Rican coffee naturally stronger and brighter anyway? So couldn't I just order a small black coffee and still get that punch?
You could, but you'd be missing the point. The local expectation of flavor balance is just, it's
Yeah.
entirely different. They're focused on the bean's inherent clean taste, that vibrant acidity.
I see.
So when you ask for the largest size, you often get a cup that's been sitting longer or, yeah, has been deliberately watered down to meet that expectation of a volume drinker.
So you completely miss that bright acidity and smooth body that makes the bean so famous in the first place.
Exactly.
So the fix isn't to demand the triple venti whatever. It's to speak the local language of coffee.
Yes. As for Café Chorreado.
Café Chorreado. Embrace the local method. When it's brewed this way, that simple cloth filter gives you this remarkably clean taste. You get these bright notes of citrus or sometimes deep chocolate undertones, depending on the region.
And if you really need milk.
Then opt for café con leche.
Hmm.
But respect the portion size. It's modest. You want the bean to be the star here, not the dairy.
That distinction, ordering for flavor versus ordering for volume, that feels key. Okay, let's pivot from ordering to preparation. Say we bought some fresh beans and we're brewing back at our rental. The next big hurdle is grinding them.
Oh, this is where so many good bags of coffee are just
Yeah.
ruined. If you buy fresh beans, which you should, you absolutely have to match the grind size to the brewer you're using.
Right.
So if you use a fine, like an espresso grind for a corridor or a French press, that fine powder just clogs the filter.
And you get that bitter, over-extracted taste.
A cup that tastes burnt or muddy, the water can't get through fast enough, so it's essentially stewing the coffee.
Okay, and what's the danger on the other end? If we go too coarse, like, sea salt.
Then you under-extract. You get a flat, watery cup, thin, lifeless. Just think about the delicate flavors we're trying to preserve here. High-elevation beans from places like Naranjo or Tres Rios have these beautiful floral or honey undertones.
And bad grinding just wipes those out.
It completely obliterates the complexity that the volcanic soil gifted to the bean.
So what's the actionable takeaway here for grinding? What should we be aiming for?
Consistency is everything. For a corridor or a French press, you want a medium grind, something with the texture of coarse sand.
And what if your rental doesn't have a grinder? Which I imagine is pretty common.
It is. Don't just give up and use pre-ground. Find a good cafe that will grind the bag for you on-site. The difference is it's dramatic.
All right, let's talk about preservation, a classic traveler's mistake, and our next big issue is poor storage. I know so many people who get a prized bag of beans and immediately stick it in the fridge or freezer. They think cold means fresh.
It's a huge misconception everywhere, but it's uniquely bad in a place like Costa Rica.
Why there specifically?
The humidity. The air can be, 80% humidity. And coffee beans, they have these volatile oils that hold all the flavor, but they're also super absorbent. They soak up smells and, more importantly, moisture.
So when you combine cold storage with a humid environment,
You get this awful condensation cycle. You take cold beans out into that humid air, and that rapid temperature change causes instant condensation.
and that moisture gets right into the bean.
Deep into the bean, it degrades those delicate flavor oils so fast. So not only do your beans start to taste like last night's dinner from the fridge,
Ah,
but the moisture just dulls the entire roast profile. You end up with these muted flat flavors instead of that bright lezzing you paid for.
that makes perfect sense. We don't want muted flavors when we're talking about, say, the soft acidity of a bronca bean or the fruity sweetness of a West Valley. So what does proper storage look like in a tropical climate?
Simple as best. Airtight container glass or ceramic is great at room temperature, and keep it away from direct light. That's it.
No freeze.
I mean, unless they are perfectly vacuum sealed and you plan to use the whole bag the second you open it, just don't do it. Ideally, you're consuming them within a few weeks of roasting anyway.
Okay, that brings us to the final element in brewing that requires precision: the water. The next mistake is overlooking water quality. I think most people assume, because Costa Rica's water supply is generally clean and safe to drink, that it's perfectly fine for brewing.
And that's exactly the assumption that can ruin a cup for a discerning palate. The water is safe, yes, but unfiltered tap water is full of minerals. And those minerals will clash with the organic compounds in the coffee, masking all those subtle, delicious notes.
And I imagine it's worse in some areas than others.
For sure. Harder water, like what you might find in a region like Guanacaste, has a much higher mineral concentration. And that can really amplify any bitterness in the brew.
So we need to treat the water with the same care as the grind. What's the quantitative rule here? We need to be specific about temperature and ratios, right?
Absolutely. Always use filtered or bottled spring water. Always. And for temperature, the sweet spot is just below boiling, so around 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 93 Celsius.
Why that specific temperature?
It's crucial because it extracts that balanced body without scorching the grounds. It lets the volcanic soil's unique mineral gifts actually come through in the cup.
And the ratio. The amount of coffee to water. Do I really need to travel with a little scale to make my vacation coffee?
Look, you don't need a scale, but a scale turns guesswork into consistency. The rule for a strong, balanced cup is pretty precise. Use 1 to 2 tablespoons of grounds for every 6 ounces of water.
So if you can measure that, you're guaranteeing a good cup every time.
2 are. Otherwise, you risk a poor ratio, and you end up with a weak, thin brew or something overly aggressive.
Okay, let's shift gears from the technical to the cultural. Our next pitfall is about where we look for coffee, chasing those third wave spots everywhere we go.
It's that expectation gap again, isn't it? We're so conditioned by global coffee culture to expect, complex pour-overs, siphon brewers, cold brew on tap.
And we think it should be available everywhere.
Right. And while big cities like San Jose or tourist hubs like La Fortuna will have modern cafes, the vast majority of rural Costa Rica, they stick to the basics.
And demanding some complicated specialty drink in a small soda, that's the local term for a small, casual eatery. Right?
That's it. Demanding it there isn't just confusing for the staff. It means you're completely missing the point of the authentic experience.
Yeah, I can just picture that interaction.
I once watched a tourist try to explain a honey-processed single-origin pour-over to this very kind but very baffled cook in a tiny soda outside Torrealba. The cultural gap was palpable.
So the key is balance. Seek out the urban roasters for that cutting-edge innovation if you want it, but make sure you visit the sodas for the real everyday experience.
Exactly. That's where you'll find coffee served simply, often with a fresh empanada or a piece of local cheese bread. And this leads us right into the next cultural oversight, ignoring La Hora del Café.
Ugh, the coffee hour. The crucial 4 p.m. pause. If you're rushing through your day just focused on sightseeing and grabbing coffee in a to-go cup, you're not just skipping a break, you're skipping a fundamental piece of the Pura Vida culture.
You really are. Around 4 p.m., everything slows down. Locals pause for coffee and, more importantly, for conversation. This break is so integral to that easygoing Pura Vida lifestyle. It's a social investment. It's where bonds are built. It's a generational custom.
So if you only experience their coffee as like commuter fuel,
You haven't really experienced Costa Rica.
and beyond the cultural side, Is there a practical benefit to slowing down and taking part in this?
100%. The places that cater to the rushing tourists, those grab-and-go spots in the high-traffic areas, they're often charging double for what is frankly a mediocre bulk blend.
Tourist traps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you join the locals at a soda during that 4 p.m. hour, you get the authentic experience, the freshest pastries, and a much better locally valued price. You're rewarding the community, not the trap.
That's a fantastic insight. Okay, now that we know how to approach the culture and the brewing, let's talk about where to buy beans to take home. The next mistake is choosing the wrong shops or just relying on impulse buys. We need to vet the quality.
And hygiene is the first thing to look for, especially in a humid climate where, mold and off flavors can develop really quickly.
So, what are the red flags?
Dirty counters, sticky tables. If the equipment itself, especially the corridors, looks unclean, be wary. Unclean gear will instantly taint the flavor.
And what about the beans themselves?
Avoid those big, open bins of pre-ground beans that are just sitting out exposed to the air. They go stale so fast.
Okay, and how do we vet the staff? We, as listeners, are becoming experts now. How do we spot a true coffee expert running the shop?
Ask questions. Look for clean equipment, sure, but test their knowledge. If they can easily name and differentiate the regions, if they can tell you about Turrialba's unique climate, or the micro lots from Naranjo, you're probably in a good spot.
And if they just say, it's from Costa Rica,
then you might consider moving on. And trust your own taste. A bitter taste usually signals over-roasting to mask poor quality, while a weak brew points to bad ratios.
so trust your instincts and trust the crowd.
That's the tip I always rely on. Follow the crowds of locals, especially in the morning when they're getting their daily supply. They know where the freshest roasts are.
Finally, our last oversight is an ethical one: neglecting sustainability. This is about buying the cheap bags without checking for eco-friendly practices and really missing the human story behind the beans.
Yeah, and Costa Rica has built its reputation on high-quality, eco-friendly farming. Every bag of that coffee tells a story of seasonal workers who handpick every single berry on these steep slopes. Ignoring that and just grabbing the cheapest bag, which is usually a commercial mix,
Yeah.
it undermines that whole effort, especially when certifications like Rainforest Alliance are so widely available.
So how can we enhance our trip while also supporting these farming communities and, getting the best product?
Be intentional. Look for fair trade or direct from farm options. Look for that little Rainforest Alliance frog logo or other quality certifications. And the best way to really deepen your knowledge is to take a farm tour. Go to a region like Arosi where you can see the entire process, from the cherry on the plant to the final cup.
It really highlights the labor involved.
It does, and it directly supports the communities that grow these amazing beans.
And just to close the loop on shopping, a final practical tip: don't just rely on chains or the airport for your souvenir coffee.
Please don't. Those places often sell commercial blends at inflated prices, and the quality is just not there. If you want to taste the real deal, that distinctive citrusicizing from Terrazoo, or the strong chocolatey body from the Central Valley, you need to go to the farms, the local markets, the vetted sodas.
Get the fresh roast right before you fly out.
That's how you make sure you take home the exact quality you experience on your trip.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, really moving you from novice to insider. By avoiding these 8 slips, from ditching the diluted American-style coffee to mastering the grind and water to really participating in La Hora del Café, you can fully savor Costa Rica's coffee culture.
It's a rewarding balance, isn't it? Respecting tradition while embracing that little bit of technical precision.
It really is.
And if you connect this knowledge back to the bigger picture, you realize this isn't just about brewing a better cup of coffee. It's about engaging in cultural history. It's fascinating, actually, that the corridor, that simple wooden stand and cloth filter, is so central to the national identity that it's even in a bilingual coloring book called Pura Vida Kitchen.
To teach kids about their own food culture.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, the knowledge here shows that cultural understanding is often hidden in plain sight. So it leaves you with a question to think about. What other simple everyday rituals in your own life, the way you make tea, the way you make breakfast, are actually a shortcut to a deep generational social history?
Something to mull over with your medium ground, precisely brewed Chorreado cup.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.